How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Table Takes. We're so excited. We have so many cool stories today, and we even have a special guest for our interview-worthy segment. Diana Jones, emerging designer program winner, Clarence Simpson is going to be on the show later on. So stick around for that coming up later. What we usually do at the beginning of every one of these shows is check in with all of our hosts. And we've got Peter back. Peter's been on a wild adventure, and we can't wait to find out what happened. So, Peter, why don't you tell us all about it?
Hi, well, it's great to be back. I was in Colorado last week. Every summer around this time of the year, my wife and I go to Colorado. My her family's from there. My father, till he passed, was living there. We would just go on family time, cabin time, that sort of thing. And this year was special. It was her mother's 85th birthday, and there was a fantastic party with all of her mother's children and most of their children and all their grandchildren and great grand. I mean, it was like just really, really nice. And now I'm back. So,
Welcome back, Peter.
thank you.
I have a couple of questions for you, but I'll stick to just one. Um, how strongly do you feel about the pronunciation of Colorado? It sounds like you have a pronunciation in mind that you like to use, but I feel like there are people who would differ.
Colorado? It's Colorado? It's Colorado? My wife's saying it's Colorado. Is that it?
Colorado. Okay.
Colorado?
I will start calling it now Colorado. And you can tell us all about how Thanksgiving goes for you,
Did I
Peter,
get
because
that
it
right?
sounds like,
Colorado? Colorado. Wow. Ooh.
well, thank you,
Schooled,
Peter.
schooled on public TV by my wife, and she's not even on the show. Wow.
Twitch chat, if you disagree, please let us know how you pronounce Colorado in the chat. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's see what Noir's been up to this week. Noir, what have you been up to this week? I
Oh
like your
boy.
shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I love being picked up. Um, I haven't been up to too terribly much. I've been starting doing start playing games, which is a means for professional GMs to reach out, find players, and run tables for them. So I've been doing a lot of that, a lot of Star Trek games, and I've been trying out new tools to help in my GMing. And one such tool is Deck of Stories, which
Ooh.
has like a bunch of plot lines that you can mix and match and put together. It has been clutch for me, so highly recommend it.
Well, thank you, Noir. I think I have a couple of those actually from previous Gen Cons. It's like stickers or glitter. You just accidentally pick some up along the way. You just get random RPG accessories just by
Hmm.
being around all these gamers. Very cool, very cool. Bonsai, what have you been up to this week?
I got a lot of things. Like last week, Friday, I was able to see my father. He came by and visited just for like a couple of hours. Just because that's his time frame. He's always so busy. So I got to see him and visit him for a bit, or he got to visit us for a bit. And then also, I was able to play some video games. It's been a very long time since I've been able to do that with some of my friends. And we played Human Fall Flat. It's a very fun puzzle game. Everybody loves Human Fall Flat, right, Javion?
No, actually, that's actually false. Twitch chat, just so you guys know, what Bonsai is doing now is lying. She's lying about what good games are, which is very odd and strange, but it is video games, so I guess that's why. Um, Human Fall Flat is a terrible game for terrible people, and it's frustrating to no end, and that's why I will not be playing it anymore.
You still had fun. You still had fun, admit
I did
it.
have fun eventually, once we figured out how to get through that door. Thank you, Bonsai, for that reminder of that horrible day. Now you all might be wondering, what has Javion been up to? I know I am. As you can see, I got my hair cut. I definitely needed that. Um, I have been trying to figure out why Attack on Titan was something people watch. So instead of actually watching it, I decided to just go on YouTube and have people explain it to me. I think I get the idea now. There are a lot of people that really like it for a lot of different reasons that I will not go into. Maybe I should watch it. It's like a big endeavor. I off of Marcus's recommendation, I tried to get into One Piece. And then I don't know. It just felt like a really big show, and I was just getting myself way in over my head. So I feel like Attack on Titan's gonna do the same thing. So I'll just stick to rewatching Dragon Ball Z Abridged on YouTube and just leave it at that. Folks, that's all the time we've got to check in with our hosts today. We've got so much information to cover here, so let's jump right into our headlines. This first one is coming to us from Alex Meehan of TableTakes. That's right, Alex Meehan, TableTakes' very own journalist. Noir, take it away.
This is a big one. So Elon Musk and Cards Against Humanity, they find themselves in a little tiff over the abuse of land. So Cards Against Humanity is a studio behind the popular game. They're suing Elon Musk's company SpaceX for allegedly using its land without permission. The company is best known for creating their card game Cards Against Humanity in 2009, a card game in which players attempt to win the most question cards by providing answers. Cards Against Humanity has since seen the release of 50 expansions, including Cards Against Humanity Tabletop Pack, Trump Pack, Weed Pack, and Pride Pack. Nevertheless, the Cards Against Humanity company claims to be politically active, especially regarding abusive tactics by government and wealthy businesses against regular people around the country and the world. The studio has also directly referenced its history as a company that was initially financed by crowdfunding campaigns as a motivation to remain faithful to its original and continuous supporters. Um, in that spirit, they do stunts every now and then that have targeted particular issues of people who ignore the rights and problems of regular people for their own personal enrichment and aggrandizement. For example, one of these stunts was that the studio's decision to set up a supporter funded project as part of Cards Against Humanity in 2017's holiday campaign that was designed to take a stand against the building of a border wall by the then US President Donald Trump. The project saw 150,000 people provide funds that the Cards Against Humanity studios then used to purchase a plot of land in Cameron County, USA. This is all relevant because now it appears as though SpaceX has purchased a piece of land next to the Cards Against Humanity's piece of land. And according to a statement by Cards Against Humanity, Elon Musk SpaceX was building some space thing nearby and figured he could just dump his stuff all over their gorgeous plot of land without asking. After they caught him, SpaceX gave a 12-hour ultimatum to accept the lowball offer for less than half of their land's value. Um, SpaceX responded by, and this is a direct quote, go fuck yourself, Elon Musk. We'll see you in court. So this is where we're at between these two. It's very interesting to see a tabletop company thrust into a political conversation in this way. But that's where we find ourselves. And so now I pass it on over to all of you.
One, this is a great PR stunt, and not a PR stunt, but it's great publicity in any case for Cards Against Humanities because people are talking about it, especially with their like views on being outspoken and being like, making a statement. But I will say that lowballing, I feel like it is like something like when the process of buying land, just like the kind of thing. A lot of times, contractors will just assume that like a plot of land, especially if they bought all the plots of land around it, is part of it without actually really looking and diving in. So that's why there's been many like at least in recent years, many a mistake of people building houses on wrong areas, and also using areas as like places to put things. So it's it's a little jumble because people don't double check before they try doing things with land is a bigger thing. So that's caveat I have to say. Like I wouldn't really blame the contractors. They just assumed, but also double check your work before you lay anything down.
This reminds me of some kind of quote from, I think, The Princess Bride about land disputes with I think China. I don't know. I'm getting it
Oh,
all mixed up.
yeah.
But don't get into a labor dispute with
A
Cards Against
land war in
Humanity.
Asia? Is that what?
Yeah. Oh, a land
Yeah.
war in Asia, not a land dispute. Okay, clearly. Um.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is the next level up. I mean,
Yeah, I think this reminds me of Noir, you were saying in the article about people or them claiming to be political. I remember when we reported on Cards Against Humanity raising abortion funds back in 2022. And it was the first time I thought like, huh, I guess these companies can actually like do stuff like this. And especially the ones that are like a little bit meta, a little bit more like on the level of other people, where it's like, yeah, it's kind of a joke, it's kind of funny, but also like we're doing this because we actually want
Yeah.
good things to happen. We can. So it's kind of interesting to see all these different overlaps. Well, we'll definitely have to keep an eye out and see what happens next. So let's jump on over to our next headline here. We're gonna kick off some WotC news with Peter.
okay. Well, okay, so I've got two articles. They're both about the same topic. They were both written by our friend Jeffrey Dome Sanchez at ICV2. Okay, so the first article, 2 days ago. Magic the Gathering fans have taken their outrage over the recent commander bans to the next level by creating two different petitions, one to fire the Commander Rules Committee and one to reverse the recent bans. The recent bannings of Jeweled Lotus, Dockside Extortionist, and Mana Crypt have truly struck a nerve with Magic players, enough for them to call for the heads. Yes, the heads of the CRC. That's the Commander Rules Committee, if you're not keeping up with the acronyms. Since announcing that those three once valuable cards have been banned in Commander / EDH, EDH is Elder Dragon. I keep wanting to say Homelander, but I think it's Highlander games. The CRC has been under fire on social media nonstop on every group, website, and thread related to the game. We even heard about it as the next logical step in the cycle of gamer rage. Good choice. I like that, Jeffrey. Good job. Commander fans put up two petitions on change.org. I thought that was just for like politics. Huh? One to fire the CRC and one to reverse the changes to the format. I guess it is politics. The manifesto for the first petition has been articulated as follows. Don't panic. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the beginning is priceless. The ban list for September 23 is an atrocity. Why? Thousands of customers and players have lost thousands of dollars. Wait a minute. They spent thousands of dollars on cards thinking that they would never change in value or only go up. Okay, let's be clear. The EDH, remember, this is the Elder Dragon Highlander, is an eternal format, meaning it has access to all cards throughout the history of Magic the Gathering. These changes serve only casual players. They've kept Soul Ring because it defines the format, yet ban Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus, cards that literally define Commander / EDH as a whole. It just goes on. It's the only thing wrong with these cards for price availability. It's more than obvious that the Rules Committee is completely oblivious and ignorant. They need, not my words, I'm just reading from the article. They need to be fired ASAP. At the least, I hope this is a turning point where they recognize that this is its own format, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, that's good. So the larger of the two petitions, the one to reverse the current changes, demands the reinstatement of Dockside Extortionist, Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, and also Nadu, Winged Wisdom. This petition focuses on the idea that Commander / EDH is a format that was built so the players could use the cards they've spent money on to play in a casual format. And that by the CRC banning cards, they are essentially circumventing aspects of Rule Zero, the discussion that happens before a game of Commander that sets up special rules of the game. The article goes on to speculate whether there might be a conflict of interest, concerns for a publicly traded company, Hasbro, to allow an outside, loosely affiliated community with no oversight to change the Commander format. Interesting. Okay, second article, shorter, yesterday. Josh Lee Kwai, CEO of the Command Zone podcast, has resigned from the Commander Advisory Group, the CAG. The CAG is an invited group of commander community leaders who assist and advise the Commander Rules Committee, the CRC or the RC, by offering their perspectives on the format. This resignation comes after the recent Commander Rules Committee ban announcement, which drew the ire of Magic the Gathering Commander EDH fans. Kwai's resignation statement was made public via his X account. In the statement, he said that he felt privileged to provide input to the CRC about the format and wished nothing but the best for the CAG and the CRC. The reason for his resignation was not discussed much by Kwai in the statement itself. However, in a previous X post on September 23rd, okay, that's just 2 days ago, or 4 days ago, Kwai states, "I don't like the bans. I think it's a bad call. If you've watched our content over the years, I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. Thus, it is reasonable to surmise," Jeffrey Dome Sanchez's words, "it is reasonable to surmise that Kwai's input given to the CRC was likely contrary to their final decision to ban these stable cards from the format." Mr. Dome Sanchez, I agree. That seems a reasonable surmisal. Also, this article has too many TLAs.
What is a TLA?
3-letter acronym.
Oh, man. Okay, got it. Well, that makes sense. Man, sounds like there's a lot of turmoil in the Magic the Gathering community, and that's not our only.
Here's the punchline, Davion. If you took this article and just changed a few of the proper nouns, you could have printed this in any decade, the last 35, any decade of the last 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah. The controversies over banned cards, it almost deserves a grognard moment, but I'm just going to spare you all.
If anybody would know, it would be you, Peter. That's for sure. You know, this isn't our only Magic the Gathering related turmoil, actually. We got another headline here.
Heavens, no. Heavens, of course not.
Yeah, a little bit more news. Bonsai, take it away.
All right. I know I've been harking on this for the past few weeks, but we finally got a little bit more detail with the Magic the Gathering Netflix series. And yes, it is confirmed. It's still alive. It's still alive and kicking. Just last Friday, we were talking about this, about how it might have been canceled. And what is it called? Netflix Magic the Gathering show on Tadum, the Netflix news site, named so because if you know the sound when you open Netflix, ta-dum, that is the sound it makes, reveals that the series is still in development and revealed the first teaser image of the show. There isn't too much known, but Terry Matalas, the writer on Star Trek Picard, has been tapped as showrunner and executive producer, also with Patrick Osborne, an animator with credits with The Big Hero 6, and Wreck-It Ralph is heading up animations for this show. The teaser image, if you look at it, has two characters, Chandara Nalar, sorry, I am really bad with names, so if I butcher these, forgive me, and then Ajayan, wait, hold on, Goldmane. Ajani Goldmane. The series originally was meant to focus on Chandra and Jace Berlirin, but it's unknown if Jace is still going to be meant in a major role in the new show. But it looks like they just have a teaser. That's all they're doing. So besides the bans, there you go. People can look forward to hopefully getting a actual Netflix series.
Man, Bonzo, you're talking about like the major players in the Magic the Gathering universe. So this is like something we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on. If there is going to be trouble in the world of Wizards of the Coast, you can bet that here at TableTakes, we're going to report on it. We're going to let you know about it. Let's keep it rolling with the WotC news. We got a little bit more info about the new 2024 Players Handbook. Peter, why don't you tell us more?
Yeah, and this one is such a nice softball to watch. I'm almost embarrassed by it, but we say once in a while my own company deserves a little bit of praise here, and so let's give it out. Let's give it up for them. This feature is also brought to us by Jeffrey Dome Sanchez at ICV2. Wizards of the Coast announced that the 2024 Players Handbook, that's for Dungeons and Dragons, has become the fastest selling Dungeons and Dragons product ever. It passed Tasha's Cauldron of Everything to make it the biggest product launch in the game's 50-year history. To meet demand, WotC has printed 3 times the number of 2024 handbooks as the 2014 edition. Quote, We couldn't be more pleased with the resounding critical and fan acclaim and record-breaking launch of the 2024 Player's Handbook. And we have our loyal fans to thank for it. They played a major role in helping make this product what it is, says Jess Lanzillo, VP of D&D Product and Franchise at Wizards of the Coast. Jess goes on to say, our team has been analyzing feedback from players since the release of the 2014 Player's Handbook and have worked hard and thoughtfully to implement it into the new core rulebooks to create something that we hope everyone will enjoy, end quote. The 2024 Player's Handbook has several improvements over a previous edition, which perhaps is what made it such a popular product. This product soft launched at Gen Con. Ooh, Gen Con. Highly recommend it, by the way. 2024 with 3,000 copies and sold out at the show. Here you go.
I remember people very greedily grabbing their copies as soon as they possibly could, going over to the stadium at the beginning of each day just to see if they had any extras. And yeah, they definitely sold out. And then people went online and they were talking about it and all the changes, and it definitely blew up a lot. I was not expecting it to be the fastest selling product ever. Wow, that's crazy. It really goes to show when they make these kinds of huge changes, and when they really, really go in depth about player feedback and they make these kinds of adjustments and then announce it in the right way, not with like a whole OSR, kind of a vibe to it. People take notice and people want to get their hands on it. So, man, I guess we all have to make those long conversations now with our players about whether or not we're going to use these new rules. Are we going to stick to the old stuff? Are we going to switch to the new edition, or are we going to keep on, keeping on?
Yeah.
Peter, you've been through so many different changes of like D&D. I'm sure you have plenty of opinion, but we gotta move on.
Let's move
We
on.
gotta move on. That's enough of the WotC news. We got some other.
Yeah, don't get me going on that.
We've got some other TTRPG news as well. So Bonsai, why don't you take it from here?
All right, thank you so much, Davion. Well, guess this is our special thanks from J.R. Zambrano of Bells of Lost Souls for bringing us this to our attention. But Morkboard is getting a video game. So if you guys aren't familiar with Morkboard, the Doom Morkboard. Sorry, I just like saying the word like that. The Doom Metal Fantasy RPG that has had the biggest name in indie RPGs over the last couple of years or so is set to launch Kickstarter for Morkboard inspired video game called Heresy Supreme. Heresy Supreme is a Doom metal filled side scrolling action RPG that shares the same art direction and design style coloring panels as Morkboard and seems to feature a variety of player classes. Outside of the some trailer teasers and the teaser trailer, there's not much known about the game, but it's set to launch on Kickstarter in another few days, probably October 1st, if I am correct. And you can head over to Kickstarter to preview their page and get notified on the launch.
So Morkboard, the video game,
Yes,
immediately conjures to mind different like ideas of like what the art's the direction is going to look like. It's going to be super gritty. It's going to be super dark. Bonsai, do you have any predictions about this video game and what you think is going to be in it?
oh yeah, it's gonna have to pump out some like heavy metal music while you're playing it. Gonna have to have a flash warning because when you kill things, it would not surprise me if like flashes and stuff happen. And like I know a lot of people are used to Darkest Dungeon. This is like if Darkest Dungeon had a hyper colorful friend that just like love color but still had that kind of darkness feeling but wanted to splash it with rainbows. That's really what it's going for, and I think a lot of people who are into that kind of style definitely probably gonna be a lot of gore in it, but it's gonna be cool, it's gonna be heavy metal, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of like numbers going up with death kills. That's my prediction.
I wonder if they're going to go for like a open world kind of feel to it. I'm not sure exactly what it might look like if they did. But yeah, I think everything else you said, I would definitely agree with Bonsai. I feel like we've seen some games along the same like sort of gothic or dark horror kind of style to it, but this seems like it's going to stick a little bit closer to the fantasy stuff. I can't say for sure. I've definitely not played Morkborg myself, so I don't really even know. But when we had one of the designers of some of the offshoots of Morkborg on, and they were talking about the game, I definitely got that vibe to it. So maybe they'll even add in some of those offshoots like Pirate Borg and some of the other ones as well, if it does well enough. You know, we saw what happened with D&D and Baldur's Gate, so let's hope that the same thing happens with them. Okay. Speaking of tabletop role-playing games, I've got my own article here to share with you folks, and it's all about Dungeon Crawl Classics. I should say I talk a lot about Dungeon Crawl Classics, but I really haven't played much of it. I've run a dozen funnels, but I've only really played past level 1 once, and that's really it. But I still love it. I still love talking about it, and there are still lots and lots of people out there who are excited about more content. This article here comes to us from Jeffrey Dome Sanchez of ICV2, and it's about a new adventure path, or not a pack, called Caverns of Thracia for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Now, this was actually originally written by Janelle Jacques back in 1979, and this conversion to the modern style was made by Bob Brinkman, or written by Bob Brinkman. And getting this thing to happen has been like 2 years in the making. Back in May of 2022, Goodman Games was trying to make this work. And here we are now. They finally got the deal. And we can look forward to seeing Caverns of Thracia in March 19th next year in 2025. Caverns of Thracia is about lizard people. You go underground and you got to fight a bunch of them and then take down the cult of the death god Thanatos. It's all in the Greek style. And you might note Thanatos might sound a little bit familiar if you are into Greek mythology, because Thanatos is the embodiment of death. So, you know, a cult dedicated to them with a bunch of like lizard people living underground and having to fight them. You can tell it's probably going to have like tons of traps and a lot of mayhem, and it's going to be very, very dangerous. So I'm sure a lot of people are finally glad to see that it's coming out, and you only have to wait until next year to play it. Apparently, it's got enough content to last you a whole year of Dungeon Crawl Classics games. I don't know what their metric is. My group plays every 2 weeks, so I guess if you're thinking about like every 1 week, then it probably translates to a whole 2 years of gameplay. Does that kind of work? I don't know. I don't really know how people are playing their games these days. I kind of strayed away from the single long campaigns, and we're sticking to the more like one-shotty style of episodic gameplay. So there you go. Let's see what they can do with Dungeon Crawl Classics in the future. Bonsai, what were you going to say about this?
Oh no, I was just saying it's great that they're bringing a lot of these like digital classics back so people can share them and re-go through all of these stories, and also just revisit that beautiful like kind of realistic kind of art style that they used to have back then. Also, yeah, I didn't hear about how it's supposed to be like a year-long campaign. My group plays maybe once every 2 weeks, and so it's probably like 4 years, 3 years of content for us if we do a single campaign.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, and yeah, it's a good nod to bringing some of the oldies back, but with a new flair.
I think it's interesting to point out that Caverns of Thracia, I've heard it described. I owned a copy of the original Judges Guild version and from back in the day, and I had heard somebody describe it as they felt it was the first dungeon where Janelle really took the time to design the ecosystem, like trying to figure out like why is this dungeon here? What the creatures that are in the dungeon? Why are they in here? What's really going on in this dungeon? And so I think it's remarkable for that reason.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, you guys. Let's go ahead and wrap up our headlines here. Folks, we are very excited about our interview coming up, but before we get there, let's head on over to Crowdfunder Court.
Welcome to Crowdfunder Court. Here come the judges. Prepare to be judged. All rise. Court is now in session.
No worries.
Okay. Okay, first of all, if you're not familiar with Douglas Adams, he was an English author best known for The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which started off as a BBC radio comedy that eventually became a book and then a trilogy of 5 books. And this sets the stage for my crowdfunder proposal for this episode. It's called Douglas Adams Explaining the World from Prodigal Entertainment. It has raised $66,000 on BackerKit versus the goal of 17,500, 942 backers and 26 days to go. So Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy expanded to a trilogy of 5 books. If you can't tell, I love this series, which is why I'm so excited to promote it. Sequels included books like The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, Life, the Universe, and Everything. And in my favorite sequel, humans learned that they were only the second most intelligent form of life on the planet. And the cover art shows dolphins leaving Earth, waving back to us as if to say the book's title, So long and thanks for all the fish. Douglas Adams Explaining the World is an original audiobook drawn from Douglas Adams' archives, brought to you by Pushkin Industries and written and presented by Audible author Arvind Ethan David. When he died in 2001, Douglas left behind a large archive of recordings, most of which have never been digitized and have sat unheard all this time. This Kickstarter will support its digitization and proper cataloging, and the crowdfunder proposes to create a truly unique audiobook that contains elements from these tapes, along with interviews of comedians, collaborators, business partners, and experts in the fields that obsessed Douglas: conservation, mass extinction, the internet, AI, space exploration, and alien life. In other words, life, the universe, and everything.
I really quickly wanted to give a shout out for one of the Douglas Adams projects, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, which I know is mentioned on the crowdfunder here, but man, I love that show. It's so good. And honestly, if you ask me, it ended way too soon. I wasn't the biggest fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's that absurd stuff that like it's really hard for me to latch onto. But that show, that was like tailor-made for me. It's so wholesome, it's so fun, and I loved it so much.
Excellent.
Okay, let's go ahead to our next crowdfunder on trial here. Noir, please rise.
Oh yeah, I've got you. And so today I have the Expanse role-playing game Transport Union Edition. That's right. We're getting another edition of the Expanse role-play game. Now, for those of you uninitiated into what the Expanse is, it is a political sci-fi thriller, very much in the vein of like your Game of Thrones, where characters are disposable, betrayals are often and they have deadly results. The Expanse role-playing game, which is the thrilling universe of J.S.A. Corey, is an award-winning science fiction novel, and it was brought to tabletop originally in 2019. The Transport Union Edition is the game's new updated core rulebook and your launch point for adventures among the stars. In addition to the game itself, the crowdfunder also offers 3 new supplements, dice, and for the first time ever, Expanse character and spaceship minis. So if you like the tactile feels and like to collect things, this is the one for you. There are 19 days left on this backer kit, and their original goal was 50,000, and they are currently sitting at $241,701. They could use a couple more of your dollars, I think. So hop on in, join the Expanse, and I hope you survive.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Noir. Okay, And then for our last crowdfunder here, this one's actually from GameFound, and it's all about the Lands of Galzir. Now, this game is a pretty wide open 1 to 5 player, 100-minute playtime board game, and it's got all your favorite fantasy tropes. You've got little woodland creatures going on quests in a fantasy world where anything can happen. It's very wholesome. It's got some very cute creatures in it, and it's sort of legacy style almost, in that you play through all of these different campaigns and games that send you across this huge world. Here's a quote from Alata Peliopus, star Miko, sorry. The box contains a world. And that's a little bit of an understatement if you ask me. If you look inside, you'll see this game is huge. It's massive. It's got all of these different app-assisted gameplay functions, which are all about finding out what happens in the world. It's not your typical choose your own adventure style. It's got a digital storybook and anything can happen. You're rolling dice, you're drawing cards, you're moving pieces around on the board, and you're trying to make stuff happen. I love games like this. So here we have the actual crowdfunder is about Dreams and Mysteries, which is an expansion for this critically acclaimed open world game. It's going to add in so many different features. A new adventurer called Noko and Umi, the Agama and Frog duo. It's got extended personal stories, new special abilities to explore, an air of mystery to discover, and a whole lot more. This is a game that actually I didn't really catch on to when its crowdfunder originally started, which is why I love bringing this stuff onto TableTakes, because now you get a chance to not only get the expansion, of course, but you also get a bunch of other cool stuff. You can go in for all in, which gives you all of the fun accessories, like the base game, the expansion, dice trays, a notebook to keep all your stuff in, a big couple of maps that you can use to make the game even more immersive, as well as a huge plushie that looks really, really cute. If you like birds, if you like lizards, if you like frogs and all those other little critters, this is definitely a game you want to check out and don't want to miss. They're definitely already fully funded. They only asked for £15,000 in I believe it's EU money, but now they're up to 146,000, way, way beyond what they expected. So definitely check this out. There's so many cool stretch goals to look at. And you can even watch some of the live play games. You can check out the rule book that they added in there just so you could explore the game for yourself before. And they've even got a couple of other games from their repertoire to add onto your pledge if you'd like to. Definitely check this one out. You've got 3 days left to decide. Well, folks, that's going to do it for all of our crowdfunders today. And that's all for Crowdfunder Court. We have our very special guest for interview worthy, Clarence Simpson, a Diana Jones Emerging Designer Program winner. We've been going through a bunch of these different Diana Jones winners, and Clarence Simpson is only the latest in that line. So we're very excited to have them on. So let's go ahead and send them on in. Let's do that.
Clarence Simpson, welcome to Table Takes. It's good to see you again. I saw you at the Diana Jones Award. I saw you at the pre-function, and I also heard you on Ken and Robin talk about stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us. So, why don't you start with just like a little bit, the 50,000-foot view. Who is Clarence Simpson, and why are you here?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a board game designer. I've been doing it seriously since like early 2019. I've got several published games out there currently, Merchants of Magic, The Wolves, Chomp, A Message from the Stars, and Ultimate Dibs, and a couple more, on the way in the coming years.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, if you don't mind me, a question with the I noticed that like you have like since 2019 have released at least four games in the past 5 years. How do you like just as a, in terms of a game di designer perspective, like how were you able to pump out so many, especially like Message from the Stars, Merchants of Magic, mo the games that I've like notably have played. So I just like, wow, how did you get all of those done? It just seems like a lot on your plate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to be able to have that. I know that's not a typical kind of story for game designers in the start of their kind of career. For me, I give a lot of credit to my local design group, the Game Designers of North Carolina. That's actually what pushed me into design to begin with. I met them in early 2019 and realized there's like people in my hometown that have games that they designed on store shelves around the country, and they meet like every week to play test each other's games and stuff. And so doing that, you know, most weeks meeting with them and testing stuff and that constant kind of like accountability. Like I can't tell you how many times the like the fact that a meeting was coming up pushed me to go and update a prototype or whatever because there's a limited amount of time you get to test these with people, and I didn't ever want to waste that time.
This is really cool to have you on. I am such a big fan of so many of your games. I literally have one right here that
Oh,
I got
hey.
from Gen Con. And I also have the Wolves, which is sitting on
Okay,
my shelf somewhere over there, but
nice.
I'm not gonna go grab it. What I really wanted to ask you is I just feel like the Wolves and Message from the Stars and so many of your games are so different from each other, but do you feel like there is like some sort of common thread or theme between them?
Yeah, that's fair. So for me, I've never wanted to just be like one thing. So like when I made my first game, Merchants of Magic, was a roll and write, and I knew when that came out, I didn't want to work on a roll and write at least for a while. I didn't want to be like the roll and write guy, right? Um, so yeah, I don't know. I like doing different stuff and exploring kind of all of the areas of game design. But as to your question for like a common thread, I would say that I tend to lean towards more like elegant design if I can, in the sense that I kind of shy away from a deck of 100 cards where there's unique text or
Um,
powers on each card, right? Like I do stuff that's, I don't know, maybe a little bit easier to understand, maybe a little more accessible, but still trying to have some of that you know deeper complex experience if you really get into it.
Yeah, and that's what strikes me so much about A Message from the Stars, because I've
Hmm.
played other games where language is important and you're like, dealing with those kinds of things. They can be
Yeah,
so complex. The
yeah.
rule book for this is like 2 pages long,
Yeah,
and you use
yeah,
the front and back of them, but still, like one of those pages is just used for a variant of the game. That's so elegant to me. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. I appreciate that.
So really quickly, I'm curious as to if you could tell us what were the inspirations behind some of your games. Uh,
Sure.
I know for in particular, Message from the Stars. Um, I'm really excited about this one because I have I'm using it in a Star Trek game. So I was just wondering, like, do you? I mean, where do you get these ideas from?
Sure. Well, so for Message from the Stars specifically, I think that all started in 2019, actually, when I was at a con and played a little game called Zendo for the first time. So if you're not familiar with Zendo, it's a very interesting game where you have like these little plastic pyramid pieces that you different colors and stuff, and you put them on the table, and there's these somebody knows these secret rules about uh, the way that these pyramids are allowed to be placed on the table. And so you basically put the pyramids out on the table as kind of like doing an experiment. Does this match your rule? And they'll say yes or no and give you some counter examples, right? And you continue to look at these kind of the results of these experiments to try and figure out what the rule is. And to me, like that was just such a fascinating version of a logic game that I hadn't really seen very often or really much at all other than Zendo. So that immediately made me want to kind of potentially explore that. And that's kind of something I tucked away for coming back later. It's like, maybe I can make a game like Zendo. And also combining with that, I always liked word games, right? But word games are a really tough sell in our market. It's really hard to like approach a publisher with a word game um, and then be interested. So I knew if I ever did it, I would need like something pretty unique and fancy about it that would make it stand out from other word games. And so at some point I decided, okay, what if I do Zendo kind of style logic with the word games where where you're doing like there's some secret rules, which that's what a message from the star does. It has the letters that have certain values associated with them, and then doing or saying a word is like doing an experiment, and so you get some data back, but you have to figure out how you interpret that data in much the same way as Zendo does. So yeah, that's kind of the source of that one.
I,
Awesome.
I want I I want to go back to your comment about being a member of this North Carolina game designers group.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the discipline and community and sort of critique, right? Almost
Mhm.
that has to happen. So I'm curious if there's any stories of like I mean, did you ever get like really mad at somebody for good like or like maybe you got the really good feedback but it was hard to take, or maybe the opposite, somebody gave you really bad feedback and it steered you wrong for a while. I mean, not
Yeah.
to put you too much on the
No,
spot,
no,
but
I get it. Right. I mean, it's something like I think I knew coming in that you if you're going to do game design, you've got to have a thick skin to a certain extent, right? And your games are going to be impossible to appeal to everyone, right? So I kind of always knew that coming in, and I do remember one of the first times that I brought a game to one of those meetings and got pretty harsh feedback on it. And that was fine, right? It was a little hard to take, but I was like, okay, let's try something else, right? Like I didn't dwell on it too much, and I knew that they were, uh, coming from a place of expertise and constructive criticism. So I wanted to at least try and trust that process. And then after I brought some other games and started to get more positive feedback from that, I knew like I was on the right track. It wasn't ever like it was. If it was constant negative feedback for everything I brought, that might have been pretty demoralizing. But it was never like that.
but it truthfully, they're giving you a gift.
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure, because they had so much more experience than I had at the time when I was starting, and they knew that's one of the great things about testing with designers, right? Like they know usually they know the industry, they know uh, a lot more games that are in the market, the types of mechanisms that are used, all those kinds of things, trends. So it's a great thing to do to be able to test with designers.
Well, with that in mind, like with this experience that you haven't gone through, like getting a view, like advice from other peers, is there something that you would like to tell, like for like maybe when you were starting out, or somebody who is just starting out, like something that you would told yourself back then as like
Hmm.
a good set of advice, like, oh, this, like, hey, this is how this went, this is how this went. Like, is there anything that you wish you told your younger designer self?
Sure. So I'll say, sort of related to what we were just talking about, right? Like a lot of common advice is to get your game in front of like other designers, right? Like not your friends and family. That's pretty common advice that a lot of people hear. And but I kind of want to flip that on its head and say after you've become a little bit experienced, stop testing with designers. And the reason for that is because designers like they always have ideas, right? Like they always have thoughts about what they want a game to be, what they would do if they were in your shoes, and they'll a lot of times they'll suggest changes and things that aren't necessary, right? Like your game may be perfectly publishable as it is, but designers always want to like put their fingerprints on it. And also, game designers aren't always your target audience, right? Like they are deep into the hobby, and maybe you're making a lighter, more casual game that isn't really necessarily meant for them. And so at some point, you realize, you need to have more of a more casual gamer playtest audience to try and see what people think about that. Or another way to put it, a way I've thought of it in the past is like you test with game designers to see how bad your game is, and you test with the general public to see how good your game is.
That's awesome. That's actually really funny. I think that's interesting though, because whenever I talk to people about their game design on playtesting for somebody,
Mhm.
I find it hard not to put my own like fingerprint on it, just like you're.
Yeah.
And I'm not a game designer at all. So, Clarence, I just really quickly want to ask, what was it like when you found out you were a winner, that you had won Emerging Designer with Diana Jones?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was it was definitely a surprise. It wasn't, I had no idea how many people were applying for it or anything like that, but it was still very much a surprise. And for me, one thing that really struck me about it was that it would enable me to go to Gen Con for the first time. Because for me, so my anniversary is on
Definitely the
August.
best part. That is absolutely the best part.
So for me, my anniversary is on August 3rd, and every Gen Con in recent memory has kind of overlapped with my anniversary. So it was something I just kind of never really considered as a possibility of doing. But this time, with being able to, say, hey, this is an all expense paid trip. They want to send me up here and do this award ceremony and everything. Then that's a completely different story. So that was really cool to be able to do that. And Peter, for future Gen Cons, if you could move it so that it doesn't conflict with my anniversary, I would appreciate it.
Taking a note right now.
Oh, so one of the things that you mentioned was, designers, they have a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how do you focus on the one concept that you have, when I'm sure there's got to be a bunch of stuff brewing in the back
Oh,
there.
sure. Yeah. I mean, I have like a huge Google Doc that I have of board game ideas, and it's at this point it's probably like 30 pages long or something like that. But it's all like each game idea. It may be like a sentence or 2 or 3 bullet points at most of kind of an idea. Sometimes I'll go back to that doc and look for things if I'm you know need a new idea. And sometimes things will just naturally kind of bubble back to the top of my head. Um, and eventually, it'll get to a point where I feel like I've got enough interesting ideas about one particular game that I'll start to pursue it. But another kind of filter that I have in my head a lot of times is the thought of the game as a final product and as a marketable game, right? Like I throw away so many ideas that I don't think have a market. And so maybe that's also part of helped me, be able to put out a lot of games in a short period of time because I've tried to think more about how appealing this a game would be to both the consumers and to any publishers that I'm pitching them to. I
If
end
you
up with
had to,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, my bad. If you had to guess, how many ideas do you have in that folder? Are we talking like double digits, triple digits?
Oh man, I would guess there's probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 ideas per page, so like 200 ideas or something like that.
JV, I was trying to figure out how many games he's about to buy.
Okay, we got time for one more question for you, Clarence. Kind of quickly, we only have a minute. Pick a game, like the game you want to promote right now. Like what's like maybe the latest greatest game that's just hit the market that you've done, and give us sort of a mini dive into that game. What is that game? What is the game you'd like us to all go out and buy and tell us about?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, so I would say Message from the Stars, but we've already talked about that a little bit. So I'll talk about one other one that's it was actually in limited release at Gen Con and should have a more wide release in November, I want to say.
Perfect.
So that game's called Ultimate Dibs, and that is an area control party game, if that makes any sense at all. The idea is that you have a 4x4 grid of category cards laid out on the table, so it could be things like things in outer space or uh, things with 4 letters, or things with 2 vowels, or things that start with S. All kinds of different categories of things. And then you play in 2 different teams. And the goal of the game is to try and control spaces on the grid. And the way you do that is each team takes a turn where one person will name a thing that applies to as many of those categories as possible, right? And then when you do that, you place a control token for your team on all of those spaces on the grid, take those cards away, deal out some new cards, then it becomes the other player's turn. They can steal back control on the grid. If you ever take control of a space on the grid twice, it's locked for your team forever for the rest of the game. And then the goal of the game is to get tic-tac-toe locked for your team 3 in a row. That's it.
Oh, that's such a good idea. I can't believe nobody's used this already. This is so good. Clarence, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much of a treat it is to have you on the show. We
Thank
are
you.
blessed to have you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Please stick around for just a little bit longer as we say our goodbyes to our audience. Folks out there, thank you so much for tuning in again for Table Takes. Gen Con TV is the home for so much more than just the news for tabletop board gaming. Peter, why don't you tell us all about our streaming schedule as we take us out of here?
Javion, I would love to do that. I am going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to start with an exciting new show announcement. We have this Sunday, September 29th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Central Time, is Plaingia School of Rocks is going to debut. Embark on a rite of passage through time and teeth in Plaingia School of Rocks. Young adventurers, literally 2, by the way, kids are playing this game, prove their worth to Bear Clan in the savage but wondrous Stone Age world of Plaingia. In this unique 5e campaign, a group of teenagers faces their many trials of adulthood, guided by the dubious wisdom of their unhelpful mentor. They'll be tested for their courage, resourcefulness, and connection to their ancestors and gods in trials that push them to their limits, a thrilling coming-of-age journey of self-discovery filled with wonder, peril, and the echoes of ancient legends from the rich prehistoric world of Plaingia. This is also the first show on Gen Con TV that is brought to us by a game publishing company. This is brought to us by Atlas Games, and so I'm very excited about that. But before we even get to Sunday, like today, like this afternoon at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have Sarah's Table, where our Centaur hero does their very best to talk their way out of a tight spot. But will their digestive system get in the way? This week on Sarah's Table, we wrap up the arc of Butt and Head. Butt and Head. Together, you are Centaur. Yes, that's right. Okay. Then the rest of the week, it's business as usual. Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, Peter versus Machine. With my guest, Armando the Bard. We play Civ. That's what we're going to do. Dress the Quest is off until October 14th. Tuesday, it's Hunt of the Reckoning on Indie by Night at 7 p.m. Wednesday, Miniatures Painting with Path of the Brush at 4 p.m. Then Actoroki at 6 p.m. Thursday morning at 10 a.m., we have Blood on the Clock Tower. Then join us again at 5 p.m. for some Shadowrun with Roll with Rem Alternates. And then Friday, well, you know, we're back here, 2 p.m. Pacific. We're back here, Table Takes. Thank you to the Gen Con TV crew, Marcus Mays, Steve Connard, Sarah Moore, Jim Slonikowski, and Tanel Levitt. Thanks to my delightful co-hosts, Javion Smith, Bonsai Baby, and the Noir Enigma. Thanks to our guest, Clarence Simpson. And thanks most of all to you for watching, for hanging out with us in chat. Remember, follow Gen Con TV, click the follow button, please. And for more, the best 4 days in gaming all year long, right here on twitch.tv/GenConTV. And also, remember, it is September. That means it is, I'm looking at the date, yep, 9/27. We're still in September. So September, if you subs this month are half off, I think, or some amount off. And we have new emotes, a whole bunch of cool new emotes that are going to be available for people that subscribe to Gen Con TV. All right, that's it.